Good evening, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 493, and tonight we have Michael Brewer. So he was suggested to me by Arnold Filomeno, and spoke to Michael. It was a really good conversation, stuff that we'll probably be touching on tonight. And who knows where this will go. Could be unknown to mankind or FMA discussion kind. But hey, I think it's going to be interesting. It'll be fun if you're watching. Tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button, and I am going to be bringing them up right now. Hey there, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
So that was a fun conversation, man. We had some weeks back there, you know?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, we got to know a little about your journey, and we kind of we're kind of on the same track as far as well, not just martial arts, but
Yeah.
other things as well. Like what's going on with this country, and I'll leave
Yeah,
that.
been a few of the same places, have a lot of the same concerns. It's good to
Like
good to
geez,
finally get to
imagine
do this.
that. So I did see today R.F. Kennedy is backing our mutual friend.
Yep. He went Trump's way.
So, but so now you're in a hotel. What gives? What are you doing?
I'm on the road, actually. Yeah, so I wish it was something martial arts related. I'd have more to talk about, but no, I'm in Indiana, a place called Camp Atterbury. There's a military experimental technology thing going on, and the company I work for is doing some military experimental technology stuff. So I'm here representing them for another week.
Nice. Okay, so no martial arts, unfortunately, but hey, you're in Indiana.
Random meetings in the lobby.
So let's jump into it. So like Anasano blend. So was that kind of your first martial arts experience, or did you do things before you jumped on that?
No, I'd say it was probably my first, kind of grown up experience in martial arts. I started when I was a little kid, about 6 years old, 7 years old, somewhere in that range. My dad had done some Wing Chun and Hung Gar Kung Fu in the 70s, and he sort of started teaching me that stuff at home. And I don't know if any of our listeners today have learned under their fathers or have been dads trying to teach kids, but it went about as well as it usually does. I loved it, but he wasn't the most patient of instructors, and so I supplemented that at home learning with some local boxing. There's a local police athletic league back in those days. You could find those everywhere. Boxing was kind of you didn't have to look very far to find boxing.
Back then, right?
We didn't have a ton of money, so poor neighborhood, wasn't hard to find a boxing gym. And luckily we moved a lot, so luckily boxing's pretty easy to pick up wherever you left off. So whether it was a YMCA or police athletic league or even just one of those kind of low income gyms you find in most of the poor neighborhoods, I'd start hitting the bag and showing up until somebody took an interest and showed me stuff. But that, I guess, the lack of formality really helped me too, just because without continuity, without being in the same place and having sort of a curriculum to follow, being able to just kind of jump in, hit the bag and wait till somebody showed you some stuff helps. So I did boxing and sometimes kickboxing, and then in those days you learned wherever was close to home and whatever was close to home. So I'd go wherever people would tolerate me being around and learn whatever I could.
I could just walk in there and they got you in a corner, like just hitting the bag for endlessly.
Just go hit throw kicks.
We'll be over.
Luckily, I was it was Kung Fu Theater was still on TV and reruns, and I was it was that thing. If he tells me to hit the bag 10,000 times, let's go hit the bag 10,000 times. I didn't realize it was just them getting rid of me. But so I got out of high school in '92, and I moved to a place outside of Tulsa. It was in Arkansas actually, but a group that fell under Terry Gibson,
Terry. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
hopefully a lot of people have fond memories of Terry. And yeah, that first Guru Inosanto does seminars in Tulsa. I don't know if he still does them in the same schedule, but it was April and November every year, and so I picked
The
up the seminar
legendary,
out there and met him and started training that stuff and got sort of hooked.
Yeah. So he was so by virtue of you attending Guru Terry's school, that's kind of you got acclimated to JKD slash Anasano blend.
Yeah. So like a lot of people, especially in that era, I, I had my pantheon of JKD people, right? And my dad had bought me the Tao Jeet Kune Do and Guru Asano's JKD book and a few others, the fighting method books. And I just devoured them, loved it, loved the idea of, using what's useful to you and developing along kind of my own skill set, my own experiences and all that kind of thing. Cause that's a boxing gym,
Yeah.
and having had some exposure to Wing Chun and then boxing, I felt like, hey, my roots are kind of in the same place as this. It just made sense. It spoke to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, Paul Vunak was kind of a big deal to me. And
God, he was something in the 90s, right? I mean,
yeah, and I mean, my we'll probably come back and touch on this later. But my reasons for training were always very simple. I wanted to be able to fight. Moved around a lot, like I said. Used to get into altercations every once in a while, being the new kid someplace, and I didn't like having to take crap from people. So, that was always kind of my driving force in martial arts, and certainly Vunak's approach to JKD spoke to that, and Terry Gibson and the students that came out of his academy were technically incredibly proficient. And he had the Inosanto side of it as well, and so that's sort of both of those.
Romel,
I'm seeing some comments.
Got some folks jumping in. I'm just saying hello to them. But interesting. So about like what age, like as far as the Oklahoma and you going there, like about like how old were you? Just generally.
I just got out of high school, so like 17, 18.
17, 18? Okay. And so that, I mean, I only reason to ask because you getting acclimated to those type of arts which were construed as the eclectics, back then, that's a pretty young age. I mean, most folks, I'm guessing you were probably one of the younger folks in there, right?
Yeah. I had actually pulled up some pictures to send you. I've got one of me and a couple of folks at that Inosanto seminar at his school. I think it was 93. John Malmo's in it back in the day. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool picture of us. But yeah, I was definitely the youngest one in our group. But like I said, I'd been in boxing gyms. I was no stranger to getting hit. I was a pretty durable kid. I wasn't all that great, but I was, it was hard to hurt me.
And the fact that you were used to contact, so you weren't like just folding and like it was overwhelming for you. You know what I mean?
Even I was everybody's favorite dummy. I mean, like
get Mike.
That's right. They knew they could show off on whatever they wanted to show, and I probably wouldn't go anywhere. So I got a lot of mileage out of that.
He'll keep coming back.
I got a little new disabilities from that now, but back then it was just kind of
like the file. I know it's 30 something years ago.
Yeah, I could feel them all now.
So what do you, I mean, like, did you realize at that time, at that young age that, young man, late teens, you're coming into your own as a young adult, like the significance, like what you're being exposed to at that young age and who you were around? Or was it just kind of like another day and I'm just going there to be
No, I had sort of a sense of awe about it a little bit, just because, again, I mean, my dad had bought me Bruce Lee books when I was young, and of course I'd seen Guru Dan's book and the Panther video series of Vunak. Everybody remembers that.
I still have
those days. It was like that was magic to me. That was a level that you just didn't get to. And so yeah, I definitely had a sense of awe about it. It was weird to me how fast not the awe, not the respect, but the sort of hero worship, I guess, sort of faded into, wow, this is a person that's handing me instruction and making sure that I'm getting better. I mean, they became people very quickly, but I don't mean that in a way that diminishes them in any way. But yeah, it was definitely, I'm lucky to be here.
Yeah, because I mean, like I've had folks, it's few and far between that are around your age that were exposed to not just icons, but these different arts outside of the lens of traditional arts. And some of them are like, well, it didn't hit me. I didn't really think about that. But in your case, like you kind of were like, wow, this is different, man. This is special. Like, so.
I definitely had a goal to be in that place. I wanted to go train with those people. I didn't just want to train. I wanted to train with them. And, I don't know what else we're going to talk about here, but that was kind of a recurring theme in my life of, I need to be on that X, and I'd go there.
Yeah. I mean, at that early age, like you knew your journey and you knew what you wanted, which most people at that age, I'm guessing, not so much. Yeah. Now, I know you're going there for seminars, but were you also attending there just the regular classes and et cetera?
Yeah. So back then, Harley Elmore had a group in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas, called Island Warrior Fighting Arts. And it was very small. It was in a dude's house. And so it was kind of all of us training whenever we could. And I was at least a regular in that, essentially lived there and did as much as I could. Met, to this day, my probably my most influential and important instructor, Brad Garrison, who's taught me, everything from the Filipino martial arts and JKD all the way through a lot of concepts in ninjutsu and other things that are phenomenally beyond what you're able to find in a typical gym. But that led me to cashing it in and moving out to live with Paul Vunak for a while and train at the academy out there, and all those kinds of things. So it was
wow.
But it was a weird balance, though, Dean. It was like I wanted to do that kind of all in, but I never wanted to be, how do you put it? I never wanted to be a style guy. I never wanted to be somebody's guy. I didn't want to be, a Jeet Kune Do guy or a Filipino Kali guy or a PFS guy or an Inasano guy. The skills were really important to me. The pedigree wasn't so much. I wanted to be with those people, but like martial arts was a thing I did, and there were a lot of other things I did. So I didn't necessarily want to be Mike the martial artist. I wanted to be Mike who does martial arts.
Yeah, right. And you're not like Mike who is under Dan Asano.
Right. Yeah. Ex's protege Mike. Yeah, it wasn't. I wasn't there. I didn't.
That's something interesting. And Errol. Yeah, PG Errol. I'm not wearing black. Something. That's kind of. For the age that you're speaking at in there. That's kind of actually quite mature. And when I mention that is because impressionable folks at that age, like, okay, yeah, man, I'm under this guy and I'm his guy and embracing that and then kind of losing essence of their own identity. And what you're saying is kind of quite the contrary. I think that's somewhat profound in a way. I think most folks at that age would fall into that trap. You know what I mean?
Well, I think, and I'm sure a lot of people who have had martial arts schools. I know we've got Bill McGrath in the audience tonight. I know there's some fantastic stuff about how to build an organization without making it a cult. And I think a lot of instructors, a lot of people who do martial arts for a living, are forced to kind of try to build a brand out of it.
Yes.
And I wasn't ever much of a joiner, I guess. I love the people. I love the honesty of a relationship in martial arts where my skill level is here and your level is here. And we see that every time we interact and you're making me better by being better than me and making me chase you in effect. But I don't want to wear a banner. I don't want to be an avatar for a style or a system. I don't want to have that thing where,
No,
Yeah.
I'm going to the extreme. I mean, obviously, I totally agree with you. I think Juwan Bill runs an incredible organization. It's seen how he doesn't get into the politics. His reps, it speaks for themselves, how they act and behave on social media and et cetera. So, yeah, I wish more organizations would look over there and kind of how to conduct themselves.
It's tough. I mean, especially if you make your living at it. And I think anybody that you ask who knew me when would tell you that I am the best example of how to not run a successful commercial school that you'll ever find.
Not easy, man.
My ethos was always I do this because I want to know how to fight. I train my guys essentially so that they can make me better at fighting, and in the process of doing that, they get pretty good at fighting. I wasn't ever a guy who was gonna like take somebody's curriculum and instill that into other people. I wasn't gonna grab this wealth of knowledge and install that in the brain of an acolyte. That's not what I wasn't doing that. For me.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, you just touched upon it. Like, and I admire like what you were doing at that age and like what you're speaking on. But for the business end, man, yeah, it's not gonna be really popular.
No, there weren't enough monetization points in doing that. You're not gonna. I can't sell you gear 16 times and belt tests.
I can only sell so many T-shirts.
Yeah. Like people who came in looking for like the next certificate or the next achievement or the next sticker or whatever, that we didn't have that.
Gosh, that's funny.
But I mean, even Guru Asano in those days, used to call it out. He says, those guys can fight. He said he told me one time, best compliment I ever got, I think on my schools was. He said, you found something kind of magical. He said, no matter who comes with you, no matter who comes to the academy, they can all fight. He said, you don't get that very often. So,
and coming from him, obviously, and him noticing that, I mean, that's powerful.
Yeah, it was cool. Small victories.
So you're at Guru Terry's, and then at some point you moved to California. Is that kind of what it sounds like?
Yeah, my mom passed away pretty young. She died when I was 20, and she was kind of the reason I was in Northwest Arkansas. And when she passed away, it kind of felt like, okay, well, I don't need to be here. I can go wherever I feel like going. And so it was one of those like ridiculous things you do when you're 20 that you look back on after 50 and go, no, oh my God. I was working a security job, and I had the only thing I had that was worth anything was like the gun belt that you have on the job. So I sold that, and it gave me enough to get a one-way ticket to Orange County. And so Paul Vunak was running these ads in Black Belt back then for like the weekend training courses. You go out and spend 10 hours, and
I remember those.
Get an instructorship. So I couldn't afford one of those, but I knew where he was because he was dumb enough to publish his real phone number. So I sold my gun belt, bought my bus ticket, and I took off. And this is 95, right? There's no Google. There's no cell phone in my pocket, no GPS. So I take a bus out there. I track Vunak down. Long story short, I was homeless for a couple of weeks, but when I found him, I showed up and. Hell with it. I'll tell stories. Everybody's got their Vunak stories if they train with him. The day I showed up, he was getting a house arrest bracelet put on his ankle for fighting in a cul-de-sac. And I just asked if I could train with him. And I guess he was shocked enough and it was inconvenient enough. He just said yes. And so the rest is kind of history from that angle. I showed up the next day and talked my way into training every day. So they said, well, he couldn't leave the house, so he needed somebody to help him out. So I was running groceries and stuff like that. And I showed up on a day that he had a personal training program, and then he had like his Tuesday class in the driveway. And I happened to show up that same day and hit it off with a dude named Pat Lockman pretty well, who was a fantastic martial artist and still one of the people. You ever meet those people that can just hit you no matter how slow they go? Like he'll be sitting there and he'll go, and just get you. And he was that
so
guy.
non-tell.
Tag you with
like,
stuff, you just watch it coming, and you're like, wow, that's cool. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it coming, and
Look at that. Bang. Yeah.
I couldn't get out of the way of it though.
Hit it off with him real well, and ended up moving in with Vu for the next couple of years. So weird things happen.
Wow, like think about that. Like you, man, selling your belt, one-way ticket, going out there, no car, no
insane,
home, no money.
But what's the worst that could happen, right? I mean, so you're 20 and homeless. When is that not a thing? But that that blew up too, because I had already trained with Guru Dan a few times in a seminar format, and Paul at one point just said, you need to be training with him regularly, and so we went up to the academy, and he introduced me to Guru Asano and Paula, and of course they have a very fond affection for him. He asked if I could be in the Tuesday, Thursday classes at the Asano Academy. And so I was training depending on how many students Paul had, between 5 and 10 hours a day there. And then I'd go up for the 4 or 5 hours of classes on Tuesday and Thursday at the Asano Academy. And then at that time, I was trying to book seminars around the country on the weekends. So, I was getting depending on the day, 10 to 14 hours of training a day, and then doing seminars on the weekend. I was eating it up. I mean, that was,
yeah, but you're young. I mean, you're like your early 20s, right?
Oh yeah. I was made of rubber and magic, and you couldn't hurt me, and I healed fast. And yeah, it was like when Wesley found the Dread Pirate Roberts ship. Anything anybody teach me, just really cranking.
I'm hearing those hours you're speaking on, man, and I'm looking at now. I'm like, no.
Yeah, there were days you definitely had to kind of ooze over the side of the bathtub into the cold water and get going, but.
Gosh, that would be Renee's here. What's he saying? Dean Franco looks great in white. Oh my God, Renee's a funny guy. Wow. So man, you couldn't line the stars up better than that. Like how it worked out for you, and now you're getting seminar gigs at it. So are you basically just teaching the Asano blend, or are you going more from a VUNAC approach?
VUNAC really shaped my approach to teaching. I was living with Paul VUNAC, and he was at the time he was charging about $100 an hour, I think. And I said, there's people that want to take lessons. What should I be charging? And he goes, $100 an hour. And I'm like, that's what you charge. I can't, I'm right. I mean, people come here to train with you at 100. They don't want to train with me at 100. He goes, you do different stuff. And he's very, very blunt about it. He was very, very plain about it. It wasn't like this thing, he wasn't playing on my ego or anything. He's just like, that's what you should charge. So I did. And my calendar was booked all the time. I just sort of taught what I cared about. And it was different. I wasn't teaching Paul's stuff. I definitely wasn't presuming to teach the Asano blend, because again, I'm not a curriculum guy. I'm not, I can do a lot of things that Guru Dan teaches, but don't ask me for, Silat buas and dummy sets and things like that. It's just not where my passion.
Can you show me the subset of Lacosta?
Yeah. I'll point you toward a video if you care about stuff like that. But that was never me, and so I didn't bother trying to teach that stuff, and I didn't veer that way when it came to content or building my system. To me, it was about I have a certain set of attributes, and I experience the world through this body and these experiences and this set of skills, and so this is kind of how I'm going to put that together. And if I taught anything in terms of an approach, it was I built this, and it looks different from these other people in the following ways. Here's how you get there. Here's how you, and that evolved over time, even beyond the fighting part of it, and into the broader. Okay, now I'm hurt and I'm old and I'm not in the shape I used to be. What does an interception look like now? Is it seeing that coming from down the street? Is it setting my life up a little different, so maybe that stuff doesn't show up on my doorstep? How far left of bang can you get?
Yeah, how is my recognition reaction these days?
Yeah, how awake am I?
It's a little, but I think fascinating, like what he did for you, and like kind of enabled you. I mean, not enabled, that's the wrong word I should be using, but encouraged you rather to get the same prices he was getting, and kind of substantiated why you should get that, and kind of let you like do your thing. I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
It was really cool. And you know, Paul had a way in those days, especially of kind of helping you find out who you were, not being a pure PFS guy, not doing, don't just go out there and teach the rat system or whatever. It was, go figure it out for yourself, and do those things that really charge you up. And he wasn't threatened by other people. He certainly wasn't threatened by other people's skill sets. He kind of knew what he was doing. And he gave us a lot of exposure in those days to anybody else that we wanted to train with. Like, he used to take people up and train with Hickson in the days that he was training with Hickson. He used to, Brad Garrison stepped in, made a comment about Daniel Doobie. And before Daniel Doobie passed, he came out to visit Paul and taught some of the coolest, most street effective savate I have ever seen in my life. And again, being the guy who can take a beating, he demoed on me a lot.
Oh, by the way, Mike, could you come on?
Oh, he did. No, don't get me wrong. So Daniel Doobie was a very tall, very lean, lanky dude, and he wore cowboy boots all the time. And he was a sniper, man, with those cowboy boots. Like, everybody's got their tricks and their gimmicks. His was, he put a dime in my palm and threw a whip kick, just snap and popped that dime laying flat. Caught it with the edge of the boot, slid it off my palm without touching my palm. Like, the control and the accuracy and the speed was just unbelievable. So he did a little seminar with Daniel in the backyard, and I got to be the demo partner for it. And at some point, Daniel realized he could hit me pretty hard and I wouldn't complain. And so he spent the next hour and a half just beating the living shit out of me. He was cocking back, the biggest chasses he could, stomping me in the leg, throwing these overhands and just chopping into my chest. Like, somewhere there's a VHS tape of it, I'm sure, and you just hear the impact on my body over and over again. But the guy could hit so hard.
Wow. Wow. Now, is this true though? Paul was considered to be the first that kind of brought savate into America. Is that accurate?
My understanding, and I'm sure that there are fact checkers on the internet that will go crazy.
We'll know.
We'll know any minute. My understanding is that he and Daniel opened the first commercial savate school. Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. So I just want to make sure. Mike, can you talk about your knife design and what you? Yeah, we'll get to the knife. Yeah, we're definitely gonna get to the FMA. Yeah, matter of fact, I'm gonna just jot that down so I don't forget.
That's when I started using my brain instead of my athletics.
Instead of your body, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Okay, so it sounds like Paul obviously gave you kind of free reign, do what you like, what speaks to you, teach that.
Yeah, he just fed the curiosity and he fed the appetite. Anytime he could.
You're getting gigs and you're getting seminars on the weekends, and you're. So, what resonated with you about FMA? Like,
the coolest thing. Okay, so I had dabbled in European martial arts for a long time. Brad Garrison turned me on to George Silver. I don't know if our audience is familiar with Paradoxes of Defense by George Silver. That should go on a reading list for everybody. He put me on to, I pronounced the name Joachim Meyer. I've heard it pronounced a bunch of different ways, but one of the authorities on the German longsword from the 15th, 16th centuries. And so I had seen a lot of weapons work, and it occurred to me that it might not hurt to study that sort of thing, just because, every time I'd listen to anything from FMA, it was, well, they would pick this up from the Spanish, or they pick this up from the Portuguese, or they pick this up from the Italians or the Americans. And so source material being a good place to start with almost anything, I looked into that kind of stuff. Filipino martial arts really grabbed me when Dan started explaining the applicability of the 12 areas of Lacoste Kali. When he sort of went over,
Okay, that's all. Yeah.
it can be a stick, but it's also this and this and this, and it can be like I said, fighting to me was an element of what I did in my life. It was a skill set I wanted to have, but I do all these other things that aren't fighting. I do primitive skills stuff. I do survival stuff. I do disaster relief stuff. I'm kind of all over the map. And Filipino martial arts was more applicable to areas that weren't fighting than just about any method that I had studied before. Like boxing is very applicable to fighting. JKD is very applicable to fighting. We can talk about how concepts apply outside of fighting, but Filipino martial arts actually goes there. When you talk about 12th area, actually learning how to patch yourself up when you hurt yourself, or how to take care of your mental well-being. And later in life, that would become more important as I did things that involved more, real world violence. Having a system for that actually mattered. I like the idea that, there was one time after I joined the Army that I was talking to Guru Dan about. I was on a 3-man team, which is a very weird size team for a military unit. And we used to get attached to other units a lot. And I remember sitting with him talking about, weapon formations in a 3-man team. What do you do? And, a lot of people aren't aware that, he was a paratrooper. He understands that stuff. And so he said, well, if you're lucky enough to have a shotgun, you should put them here in the formation, and here's your machine gunner, and this is where your riflemen go. And it was like he had that whole depth of, firearms and rifles and machine guns and tactics. And I remember going, wow, I didn't realize you had quite that big a grip on it. And he goes, yeah, it's projectile weapons. I'm like, okay, there you go.
Yeah. Wow.
Doesn't have to be a bow and arrow, right? Technology of the day. And of course, I mentioned Brad Garrison. He was another big one. When I was working up the curriculum for my school, I used a lot of his stuff because I'm not a curriculum guy, and he knows how I think. And so to be an instructor in his methods at that time, you had to be qualified in firearm safety. You had to know rifle, pistol, shotgun at a minimum, and demonstrate competency with them. So it was. I thought that's coming out of Filipino martial arts. Okay, I like this. At least in concept, you know what I mean?
Wow, that's interesting. No. So what? Okay, what? When you were when you started digging in, I guess, into FMA, was there a particular weapon or combination thereof that?
So I don't know if Mark Denny is catching this, but the Dog Brothers had just started getting pretty big back then, and full contact stick fighting again in the days when none of us knew what we were doing and had no sense, and nobody had to have insurance. It seemed like a really good idea to hit harder with weapons, and so the folks at that little school in Northwest Arkansas, we didn't have enough money for fencing masks, so we went out and got like street hockey gear. And you're like, well, I'm gonna make some safe sticks, and I'll make them out of like thick PVC, and I'll spray insulation. They were heavier than a real stick, and they hurt bad.
We did. They still, I know, but you know what it is? Because we did the same thing. Oh, guys, this will be okay. But what it's the mind tricks.
No, yeah, that's that was to us. I won't ever claim to be a Dog Brother. I didn't study with them or anything like that, but I definitely drew from that stuff, and I was inspired by what they were doing. And Mark and I've had a lot of conversations in the years since where I said, you're responsible for at least 90% of my injuries to my hands, because I wouldn't have been doing that stupid shit if you guys hadn't put the videos out. But I loved the sticks. I loved especially double stick. Sparring with double stick was really, really cool to me because it took so much attention and it switched you on so much. I was able to later get there with knife sparring, but that's an imagination exercise. I think it doesn't hurt like a double sticks do. You can imagine that a knife cut, it's very quick, but it doesn't feel like somebody, hitting you with that double boom, catching, knocking your hands out of the way, and bashing you in the face. Yeah.
No,
Big
it's
old
not.
Kirby
I
stroke.
mean, yeah,
Tear
100%.
you out.
Man. Like,
Yeah, so double stick really got me cranking, and it really brought out a lot in my mechanics. It really taught me a lot about how to move as a boxer. The empty hand stuff, and truly even in the clinch, clinch work was very important in Paul's stuff. I still credit a lot of my better clinch work with double stick, which is a weird thing. There's so much of the fluidity that translates to the elbows and yeah, you know what I mean? When you're in that kind of proximity and you have to move tightly and change angles with things, that coordination of being able to get your hands to go where they want, not tangle up with each other. It's not just this. You've got some flow.
Yeah. But wow, they're I have such profound respect for those guys, the Dog Brothers. I've like trained with some. I mean, they're just a special group of guys. The ones that I've had the pleasure of interacting with, and but the ones I met, ego free, just
it's
guys, like
Don't you find that though? The more contact is involved, the more you cut away rank and pedigree and certificates and all that kind of stuff, and it really just is about skill and ability. What can you do today? And
they got hit, so they're humble, man. Like
that's what I mean.
You freaking cracked, man.
I think that's another thing that the boxing gym gives you that a lot of martial arts don't, is we all know where we stand on a given day. Like if somebody says, "Hey, let's put in a few rounds," come do some work with me. You know how that's going to go. Like we all train together. There's nobody's. The only belt that matters is a title belt. And if you're not the guy holding that, we're pretty much you're about to find out where you stand. And and it's not that it's like a lot of boxing gyms have sort of a kill the new guy attitude sometimes.
And there's Mike.
I was not a good boxer. I don't look like this because I was good at it. But no, I mean, there's an honesty there, and not just an honesty with each other, but there is an honesty with yourself, I think. Because you go home nursing those hits, you stick hickeys all over your arms and your rib cage and everything. You can't pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah, unless you're a really good liar.
I've never been that good at anything.
That's what I mean, man. It's true. Like, truth, right? I mean, boxing, man, like you can't deny, right? And
it's I've always gravitated to it. That's why I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when it first started getting big. It's just, there's nowhere to hide, man. You just know where you are. And
you're on the bottom and somebody's got you mount and you can't get out. Like you pretty much know.
I'm smothered under this angry person who just slapping me in my ear and I can't go anywhere.
That's as real as it gets, man. I cannot get out of this position.
There's another guy that Vunak brought out to see us, Sharam Musavi, who I will forever be grateful. Yeah, for the time I got to train with him, still to this day, is
Arizona, New Mexico.
Yep. And one of the most influential people that's ever, taught me anything. It was, it was one of those days where you close the garage up and make it 120 degrees. The mats are just covered in sweat. We've been doing this for hours and steam coming off everybody. And, he's mounted and I'm stuffed up in the corner of Vunak's garage. My head's up against a 2x4 and there's concrete right here. And I can't get out. And I mean, everybody's been in that situation where you're just, not only can I not get out, I was tired an hour ago.
Oh man, it sucks.
There's nothing left. And he goes, okay, now get out or I'm going to kill you. And it just made me fight as hard as I've ever fought for 2 or 3 minutes underneath him until I just, he finally lets me out, but just so I don't quit and kill myself. But
you don't go into freaking cardiac arrest, right?
Yeah, but the lesson was, okay, that the last 3 minutes of that session is the only part that mattered. And to be able to give me that in that way was really special. I've always really had a fondness for him for that kind of.
I've heard nothing but good things about him.
He's a fantastic human being. Yeah,
I've heard nothing but good things. Yeah, so I never met him, but Yeah. Okay. So we got on the FMA. Have you gone or tried? Well, I know through the umbrella ensemble, and indirectly, you're getting exposed to different arts under the umbrella. Have you actually gone out though and trained any other FMA systems in its entirety, or just or
I've never
example
trained
names?
anything in its entirety. But no, yeah, I know what you mean. And I've tried any chance I had to train with anybody. And I mean, people that you know and people that you don't know. There was I met a guy in Northwest Arkansas who's he's Thai, but he taught Krabi Kerbong from the old country. He was a fighter. And kind of knew what he was doing, and I took lessons from him for a little while just to get that flavor. Yeah, anytime I can get hands on with anybody, I've always been in fact now the backyard group that I run, we call it Clubhouse Combatives, and it's made up almost entirely of people who used to be my commercial competition when I was running schools, but it's we kind of throw the rank away, we throw the style away, everybody comes in and trains or teaches. It's not me in the front of the room saying here's how life is. It's sort of whoever has something cool, whoever wants to try something out for hey, I've been thinking about teaching this before, but I'd like to work with somebody new. Yeah. It's really cool. So I've gotten exposed to like VR Jiu-Jitsu that way. I've gotten exposed to modern Arnis that way. I've gotten exposed to Paquita Tertia that way. DeRobio Eskrima that way. Lots of really cool stuff just from proponents of the art who've wanted to kind of swap. So yeah, it's awesome. Seminars are good for that too. You go around all sorts of different schools and you train with a whole crop of people you never see before.
Yeah, you can get, and you're meeting new people. Was there one particular FMA style like if you had the interest or time that you would like to have gone deeper in?
Wow, dude, yeah, a lot of them. That's a great question. I did some Bahala Na.
One that would like kind of spoke to you.
Yeah, I did. So I did some Bahala Na Eskrima through Harley Elmore, and I thought that was fantastic. Paquita Tertia is another one that has got. I'm a nerd for Bill McGrath's content. I'll look at his catalogs of stuff all the time, and it's such a rich art. It's a very deep pool of knowledge there. And again, I don't know that I would get a lot of personal satisfaction out of learning the curriculum from A to Z, but there's aspects of Paquita Tertia that I'm like, I want to dig into that some. There's always something like that in any art, and I think there's you find the things that you're good at and the things that really sort of charge you up, and you're like, yeah, those guys are good at that. I need to learn. Like the Paquita Tertia footwork always fascinated me because mobility and footwork were a big deal for me in the ring. And I used to look at Jersey Joe Walcott's footwork in boxing, and it was so different at the time. He used a lot of triangular stepping and zigzag stepping and lead changes, and I started to see some of that stuff in Paquita Tertia, and I was like, oh. Next thing you know, I'm digging into Paquita Tertia footwork to try to find that kind of thing. A lot of the longer range stuff out of the Bahala Na was interesting to me because, again, I was stick fighting a lot. You're doing a lot of the real contact stick fighting type stuff, and long range game is important.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it, and again, even I hate to put it this way, but anytime you look at a set of arts, especially if you look at it from the cultural perspective, because I think a lot of what's Filipino martial arts is really American martial arts dressed in Filipino clothing. And I think it's beneficial to people to, if you're going to learn something that was drawn on Filipino martial arts, it pays to learn some of the arts that maybe went and faced those or conquered them even in some cases, and learn, where they drew from or what they traded with or what they assimilated into their curriculum or styles.
Here's an interesting question for you since you brought that up. It's probably like 3 years ago. I did a podcast. It was I want to say there was 4 of us, and I don't know if you're familiar with Maya Paulunia. He came up with this idea. Hey, I forget who came up with it, but is there FMA and is there, American FMA, right? And we did a whole show on it. It was, and not one was nothing like that. Not it was just really like more or less like, okay, Filipino martial arts, is there American Filipinos? And one of the things that came up was, well, the Dog Brothers, we could obviously say is an American
Yeah.
Filipino martial arts, but it was really interesting, like what we used for our criteria to establish that. And the end thing was like the benefit of basically what you just said was train them all, right? I mean, but it was interesting.
That's one of the effects of truth, right? I mean, when you put people across from each other and they fight, it doesn't matter if you're holding a stick. There will be an opportunity to throw a punch. There'll be an opportunity to throw a kick. You're going to get tackled from time to time. It's all going to come out. And any warrior culture doesn't care where the punch came from or the kick came from or the tackle came from or what you do on the ground. They want to come back alive. They want to do what works. So if they're a Filipino and they're fighting, I'm assuming if they're fighting with a stick and they get tackled, they're not going to be like, well, here's a Filipino grappling method. I'm going to use that because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just wouldn't be Filipino enough. That's forget it. If there's a way that they can win, they're going to win. And I think Americans are fantastic at completely disregarding all of the kind of the cultural envelopes around things,
or where it came from, and subjective emotional attachment.
If you're a high jumper and there's a better way to get over the bar, do it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
To come from your coach's style. You work on it. If there's a better way to run faster in your track star, you just go faster. And I think fighting is fighting. It's I hate to be all Bruce Lee about it, but there's only so many ways a person can do this.
Or move, right? We all heard it. Like only so many ways.
If you're exposed to all these different circles and all these different things, and that guy kicked your butt last week with something that came out of Spain. Well, guess what? I'm gonna learn some Spanish stuff now.
I'm gonna be. You better believe me. I'm gonna
be. And it's one of those things, and that's not to diminish anybody's cultural importance. That's not to take away from where it came from. Yeah, it's just, I have lived and walked among warriors of all stripes for a very long time. And I can tell you honestly, it doesn't matter if they're in uniform carrying a rifle or in a Filipino martial arts class carrying a stick. If they're fighters, they will absorb it from wherever they can find it.
Well said. Tim Hartman. Oh my God. Renee's a full dog brother, by the way.
Excellent.
Growling dog.
FMA is better than BJJ.
I know. It's just like, and this is
well, the BJJ guys don't use sticks very well. They don't use knives very well.
Yeah, right. Generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of knife, because I'm not going to forget Tuan Bill's question. I tell you what. So before I don't forget it, since we're kind of on FMA, knife design. So what's Bill asking about there, Tuan Bill?
I get frustrated that stuff that works for me doesn't exist yet, and so I have to go make it. Like we had a Skunk Works in training gear for a long time. It was just duct tape and canvas and leather and pipes and anything we could do to build training gear that would work better for the stuff that we wanted to train. And I've always been that way with knives. So I mentioned before that I do a lot of other stuff. I teach and I do a lot of backcountry, primitive skills type stuff. I've always taught, survival methods and things like that. And a knife to me has always been a tool first and a weapon next. And so I was frustrated that there's almost never, you almost can't do both. It's really hard to find a utilitarian blade that you want to use every day for stuff and a knife that'll work for fighting real well. You end up with a pretty big compromise both directions. It's like it's like the karambits have been a big thing, and that's a fantastic close-in defensive only sort of knife, but good luck chopping down a tree with it. And so being in the backcountry, being in the bush, I wanted something that worked for that kind of stuff, that would also capture sort of the design of a big functional fighting knife. And so I worked with Oliver Hainan of Sly Steel to come up with what I thought was sort of the best marriage of a combat knife and a survival knife together. We called it the Spectre. It's now the Sly Steel Spectre. The prototype was a little different from the commercial version that's on sale now, but essentially I went to Oliver with like 23 different criteria that I wanted this to hit, design features that I thought were important, and he did a fantastic job of just iteratively coming up with something that was, that's what I meant. And
excuse me, Mike. What's the name of the knife again?
it's called the Sly Steel Spectre.
Slide Steel Spectre.
Yeah, Sly Steel, SLYSTEEL, and then Spectre, like a ghost.
No, I'm just seeing it. Yeah, I want to check it out.
It's a really cool blade, and I did a lot of work on it with him. It's a big knife, but it's a big knife that I've used for everything from whittling tiny little trap triggers and fish hooks, the littlest things you could ever think to use a knife for, all the way up to cutting logs. And as a fighting blade, I think it's fantastic. I've put it in the hands of several other people and had them judge for themselves, and it's come back pretty favorable.
What's the length?
Overall, it's about 17 inches.
Oh, so you're talking like
it's a good size knife.
I mean,
yeah, it's a good size knife. Yeah, it definitely fits the Bill McGrath category of large knife design. Yeah,
you're talking like okay.
Unfortunately, I'm traveling right now. I'm on the road in a hotel, and I couldn't bring it.
I was just gonna. Matter of fact, the reason I'm gonna try to see if I can find a pic of it.
When this is done, I'll send you some pictures of it.
Yeah, I mean, but I want to see where. Okay, where do you know for sure? Where, like, on social media, or
I would go to slysteel.com and just pull it up on their website. They've got it's for sale there.
Okay, keep talking. I'm looking up slidesteel.com.
It's SLYSTEEL.com.
SLY slides. Okay.
But yeah, it's the version that's out commercially is a little bit of a change. We tested the thing that I came up with had a draw knife built into it for sort of woodsmanship type tasks. But the end result of the commercial process was it's made by Tops, manufactured by Tops Knives. Great steel, it's 1095 high carbon steel. So Tops does that particular steel probably better than anybody else in the world. It's got elements of a Bowie knife. It's got elements of a kukri. It's a recurve, but it's not tip heavy like a kukri. One of the coolest things about it, if you hang on to the handle, you'll notice that it's almost got two handles in one. If you put your hand farther back, the weight is very forward, like a chopping knife, and it acts like a hatchet. If you hold with your finger in that finger choil and your thumb on the back, it's a saber grip, and the balance is literally sitting right on your first finger, so it feels damn nearly weightless. And the precision that you can use that knife with is fantastic.
I think I found it.
Yeah, I think a few people have thrown links in there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, they probably beat me to the punch.
The internet's fast, man. You can't.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Oh, they totally beat me to it, which is good, which is a good thing. Okay, the spec, yeah. But I definitely found it on there, and it's definitely a big knife, folks. If you want to check it out, Tuhan Bill posted the link here, which I'm just showing right now. There you go. If you wanted to check it out.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool knife, and I mean, in testing, I have the prototype, and I'll send you some stuff, and if people are interested, maybe I'll look at the FMA discussion and see if people want to see it. But I the torture tests that I put this thing through before it went into production were ferocious. I tried very hard to break it and couldn't. So now it's sort of it goes with me everywhere except for.
Now it looks like Brent just said it, and when I first looked at it, it kind of came like a kukri, sort of, but
it's a little different. Yeah, the element of that is definitely in there, and when you hold the back end of that handle, that's what we were going for. Is absolutely a chopping,
gotcha.
The forward weight of the kukri, and it's but when you hold it in that forward grip, the tip of the blade is dead in line with the middle of your palm as you grip. So nice. you have for lack of a better term, a tip awareness of that
Tip aware. Okay.
in a fighting sense that you don't get from a lot of knives. You definitely don't have with a kukri.
It sounds like, I mean, it was well thought out. I mean, like, as far as when you went to planning and design of it, I mean, shit.
It was cool. Yeah. Oliver Hanen is a hell of a knife designer anyway, but working with him through that and actually coming up with that and making it real was, it was a cool process. And mocked it up in wood and sent it to me for, handling characteristics. And we took some stuff out, there were things like initially we had a wire cutter in the back edge. I personally think that a fighting knife should have nothing on the back edge that could snag. I don't like sawbacks. I don't like, wire cutters. Anything that if you have to insert it into a person, you want it to come out pretty easy. And
you're like
barbs and snags and sawtooths and stuff. That's not good for that. And I'm not a big fan of even if it's curved and even if it's well designed. I don't like any kind of stress risers in the spine of a knife, and so we just got rid of that and changed the design a little bit. But little things like that, it's super attention to detail. Yeah, he was very good.
It looks it. I mean, just from the picture I saw, I mean, it would look pretty incredible. I mean, it's like, here's a review. So, folks, if you want to actually read a review on it as well, Rihanna here's.
Isn't she pretty?
Was that?
Isn't that? Pretty?
Yeah, I can't really tell from this small pic here, but I'm gonna take your word for it. Somebody you know?
Yes.
Brad, I'm just again making sure I'm not missing any comments here. Okay. No, it looks like, I mean, well constructed. I mean, it looks like a solid knife.
It's really good. I mean, not to make it into a pitch, but FMA people would really get a kick out of moving around with it. I mean,
so it's legally defensible. I mean, I could walk around Connecticut and just.
That's a bushcraft knife,
Sir, you're over 4 inches in length.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's what I would be being told. Yeah, but awesome. So, what do you? Okay, some of these we were talking about on the phone, and I think this is worth folks hearing. You know what I mean? And I think it's all in the presentation, how you do it, without calling people out. But you can always address something in a generic sense, with the hopeful goal of improving status quo. And that is like some just of the nonsense in our FMA community, man.
Where do you
I know this is going to be a big shock to you. Like, I you know what I mean? But like, what would you like to see far as changes, like overall? Like, what bugs you? What annoys you?
Oh God, all kinds of stuff, man. It's we're gonna do this without calling anybody out.
Well, I can't technically call people out because everybody knows me from the first episode all the way up to 492 that Dean is.
So this is where you get canceled right here. No,
I just like not calling people out. So
no, and I appreciate that. Of course, I'm joking a little bit.
No, I know.
I want to preface this by saying I am so far from relevant in any kind of martial arts community that it boggles my imagination that anybody would care what I think. In part because I haven't actively participated in any of the politics or really the scene in general. There's a lot of people out there doing really cool stuff, and I don't know who they are, not because I don't care, but just I haven't been an active participant. I'm on to sort of other priorities in my life, and my martial arts is something that I do for me. And so I don't mean this to kind of crap on anything else anybody else is doing, but I think a lot of people get into the martial arts for one reason and then stay in the martial arts for a whole bunch of other reasons. Very often reasons that replaced whatever they got started with in the first place.
Interesting.
I think a lot of people allow their own personal agendas to be replaced by the brand, by the sense of belonging they get hanging out with people they admire.
I totally agree with that.
They get the flash and the respect that all these people get, and it's like, ooh, I want a piece of that. And it's acceptance by proxy, it's respect by proxy, and I think a whole lot of people, maybe a majority, kind of fall away from whatever got them to the martial arts, and they start kind of trying to impress the boss.
Yeah, I sum it up in one, and I totally get what you're saying. I totally agree with you. I just summed it up in one thing: they lost their identity. They
Or
gave
yeah, or they co-opted their identity.
or or yeah, I mean, like they lost it, or they basically contributed to the losing of it and surrendered and just jumped on this bandwagon to be part of something, and just like you said, maybe their original intentions were maybe it was physical
yeah,
improvement,
yeah.
maybe
Well, it's we talked about it in a political context,
yeah.
or a social context or anything else. People have a need to belong. I mean, it's a very fundamental thing. They don't want to feel unsafe and alone out in the wilderness, so they group together. And one of the things that happens, unfortunately, is all of the things that go with that group sort of become important. And even if they weren't important to you to begin with, you talk a certain way, you dress a certain way, you believe certain things, you have certain habits, and anymore with the internet and interviews like this and the ability to just reach out and see the entire world doing whatever it does, it's shrunk the world so much that it's not hard to find your group anymore. And so
Quite easy, actually, right?
it's really easy, no matter what your group is, no matter how out there it used to be, and no matter how hard it used to be to find that kind of thing, it's a couple of clicks away now. And so you find people sort of replacing my identity and my things that are important to me with whatever is important to that group and whatever habits and speeches and teaching methods and tools. And unfortunately, a lot of times the better you play that role and the more closely you can be that avatar for the group, the more accepted you are. And when you deviate from that, they don't want you.
Oh no, because the more they say you're going in there and they can use you
You're
to
part of the
further
brand.
their
You're selling the brand.
agenda, their
Yeah.
message, their narrative, right? And then you go, it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Oh yeah. Then you're an infidel. You're even worse than somebody who
you
didn't
got
sign
the
on in the
fuck
first
now,
place.
you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, and I've seen that happen. I'm not gonna, but I was part of one system like that, and you actually saw the transformation. Like I knew people like like they were individuals and they were just thinking something out, and then you see them like 5 years later, bought, sold, conditioned, in line, following the man. I mean, just like
Yeah. It's sort of, and I won't say had falling outs with. I've diverged from people in the past who I still hold in great esteem, but I just couldn't get on board. Who were kind of going all in on whatever their brand was. They're trying to build their empire. They're trying to do their thing and make that pay their way and work every day doing what they love, and that's fantastic. I applaud it, but I'm not a tool of it, and it's I can't get there with you. I mean, I've always felt like students who come to me to learn something are paying me for this. They want me to take this thing that I can teach and pass it on. They don't owe me fealty. They don't have to swear loyalty or give me part of their income or show up every year to keep their spells current. I don't buy that stuff, and it's the reason I failed miserably at being a professional martial artist. And it's also the reason I'm such a happy guy now.
That's the thing. You're not playing the game, so you're not owned impartially or whatever by somebody or committed to somebody or have to follow a set of rules or practices and or culture or whatever.
Well, It's supposed to give you, martial arts is supposed to give you the confidence to be your authentic self, right? It's supposed to be the thing that lets you not worry about what other people think or are going to do or are going to say about you. It's supposed to give you the ability to stand up for you, which to me means living your life your way and by your own choices and doing the things that are important to you. And it's weird that we abdicate that immediately when there's a cult or a group or whatever that we feel like we have to belong to. It's like you totally dump all of that stuff that was important to you, and you're like, no, it's okay, whatever the group says. And it's like the exact opposite of the goal in the first place.
I've seen it, like just really recently, like this one guy. I'm not obviously, but yeah, you see it, and like like I remember exact quotes from this guy, exact conversations, almost verbatim. And then you're like, and it's like, whoa. It's like, I guess that was, that was just some talk, but yeah.
Well, and I know that we've all had instructors or people in our lives, maybe not in the martial arts, bosses a lot of times do this, but the cry for loyalty and I find the harder they're banging on the loyalty drum, the more you better be paying attention that's coming down as well as going up, because it almost never is. It's loyalty and family and tribe until you can't pay for a seminar, and then you're out.
Oh wait, then that's the whole thing, man. Oh wait, you didn't go to this year's event? Oh man, I'm sorry,
can't help you, man. You need to work harder on you. Yeah, come on. That's as close to prostitution as anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to pay for your friends. And
like I call it indentured servitude, but prostitution.
Yeah, I mean, there've been a lot of people. There've been a lot of people that I know that when I was in trouble, they were right there, whether I had anything to give them or not.
Right.
And those are the people I want to keep around, and that's who I want to be for them. So,
yeah, and that circle, generally speaking, is pretty small.
real small, and they have a lot in common as far as their attitude towards stuff like this.
Yeah, but man, that's so. All right, well, let's talk about like what you do. So you got the backyard. So you said screw the commercial aspect of school. I'm not good at it. I don't want to do it. So now you got the backyard thing going on. So
there was a couple of years to get there. How much time we got left? I joined the Army in '99. I was teaching military guys on and off for years, and I kept. I'd see these guys come in and they'd want to learn how to fight, and they'd want to learn this act, teach me knife stuff. I'm going to go on a deployment. I'd like to have this. And I was always kind of stunned that this sounds really bad, but I'll fix it in a minute. I was stunned that they weren't very good. And these guys these are professional soldiers, and they don't know their way around, a knife defense or how to put their hands up the right way and keep them up here instead of, And it was like there was this technical disconnect, and I couldn't understand why they weren't better at, why they weren't movie versions of Navy SEALs, And it occurred to me, later on, that it's because they're worried about fighting, like real fighting. They're worried about artillery and gunfire and team stuff and being.
That makes sense. Okay.
It's a bigger skill set, right? And the likelihood that they're going to have to get in here is, teeny tiny. But I kind of had that wrestling match with myself. I'm like, I'm a fit young man. Why am I teaching this at a strip mall martial arts school and not doing it in the real world to, have some kind of impact? So I joined the Army, and I was psychological operations, which the tier 1 special operations are the JSOC guys, the SEAL Team 6, Delta Force. I was not that. The tier 2 guys are like the Green Berets and the Rangers, and I was not that. I was a tier 3. So psychological operations and is sort of the persuade, change, and influence side of things. PSYOP gets, you've all heard that term now. But it was influence. It was, in a sense, intercepting. It was getting people to quit rather than let them get all the way to the battlefield. And so I kind of justified that in my JKD brain, and taught me a lot. And I learned a lot in that field. But 9/11 happened a couple of years after I joined, and that sort of shaped the trajectory of what I focused on. I became a counterterrorism officer, and left the military in 2007 for a job in the intelligence community, where I took a job at Guantanamo Bay. I was working on high value detainee interrogations and intelligence analysis and targeting. And then I moved on from that to a job at a place called the Joint Intelligence Task Force Combating Terrorism, where I was an Al Qaeda targeter, looking for bin Laden and senior leadership and their allies kind of in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And so, again, sort of, if the Paul Vunak and Dan Inosanto era was the big show in my martial arts, becoming a counterterrorism guy and getting on the bin Laden targeting team was kind of the big show for me in military and intelligence. And so that taught me a lot because I deployed, when I deployed to Afghanistan, I wasn't a soldier. I was I was an intelligence officer. So I went, and I'm sure those of us or those in the audience who've done this and understand what a human officer is or human intelligence officer. I went in civilian clothes. I didn't have a fire team with me. I didn't have, I wasn't carrying a weapon. And so it's one thing to be in a place like Afghanistan with an A team behind you and helicopter support and all that. It's an entirely different thing to go in jeans and a polo shirt, and go meet people to talk about stuff like you're, a construction developer or a telecom guy. And that sort of readjusted my whole martial arts thinking too, because what am I going to do? Fight my way out of a Taliban attack? Put them up,
Yeah.
So it really shifted my thinking. And then following that, I went into another area of intelligence that was more kind of what you'd think of as traditional clandestine operations. And, I went a lot of places where you could not be caught with a weapon. You couldn't show up. If somebody pulled you over and you had a weapon on you, you were not only going to go to jail, you'd get disappeared. And so that put my thought processes in a different place as far as what martial arts meant to me. Awareness became a whole lot more important. Prevention, avoidance, all of those things became way more important
than actual physical. Okay.
And so, that shaped the way I teach. And I developed an approach that I call PACE, which there's a military acronym. It's primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency, and it's sort of the levels of your planning. But I adjusted that to my martial art approach, and I called it prevention, avoidance, control, and escape. And it sort of set those priorities for me. If you can set your life up to prevent bad things from happening, you've reduced injuries by 100%. If you can see a bad thing developing quick enough to avoid it, you've reduced injuries by 100%.
Yeah.
If you look at a fight in terms of winning a fight, there's probably going to be some negative outcomes of that you weren't ready to deal with. But if you look at controlling the outcome, whether that's through, de-escalation or verbal judo or ambushing a guy before he's ready for the fight and getting away, or any number of other things that aren't necessarily mutually agreed combat,
right,
then you're in a better place. And then the last piece of that was escape. And I don't mean escape from the X. I mean escape from the bad consequences and outcomes that come from that. So you win a fight and still end up in jail. That to me is not escape. Your life is worse now.
Yeah.
You can be the best knife fighter in the world and stab a guy 36 times in the lungs, and you haven't necessarily escaped the outcome of that engagement. So I sort of shifted away from just being tactically really good at stuff and being more strategic in my approach. I found that that's also not a commercially viable curriculum.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, folks, and starting next month.
Yeah, we're going to learn how to escape the cops in Russia. No, it's
sign up today for $99.99, and you will get 1 month free.
Yeah, no, but it's I found that it does communicate well in seminars. I've done a lot of workshops with it.
I believe that. I definitely believe that.
It's really good for people who aren't martial artists, because people who do martial arts, you go to a seminar, you spend 6 months trying to work that stuff. A non-martial artist goes, they see it once, they learn nothing, they spend their money, and that's the end of it. Right.
Well, I didn't realize to the degree of talking to Arnold, talking to you a bit, I knew you obviously had a background there and like in what you're doing now, but I didn't realize Guantanamo Bay, you going over there civilian clothes. That's pretty hairy, man. Like you trying to blend in like a chameleon, but
I don't necessarily blend in Afghanistan. You do have to sort of take the whole situation into account, and you have to fit, not necessarily blend, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's if picture it like this: like you go to the Philippines tomorrow and you want to learn Filipino martial arts from the locals. Nobody's going to mistake you for a local, but right. You can do things to fit in, and you can do things that make you very welcome in places where somebody who's a non-Filipino martial artist probably wouldn't fit in.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's things like that.
Guantanamo Bay, man, that I know obviously there's got to be things, man, you're not just at liberty to discuss, but How long were you there?
I worked, so I only went there twice, but I worked on that project with the people there from a remote location for about 3 years.
Wow. So I mean, you obviously knew. Okay, I mean, like 3 years. I
Yeah,
mean,
that was a master's degree program in Al Qaeda. That was there were I don't know if anybody on our audience is familiar with Al Qaeda, but I looked at the interrogations of a couple of people. One was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was one of the planners of 9/11, and a guy named Abu Zubaydah, who was kind of a recruiter and facilitator for Al Qaeda in Afghanistan.
wow. Are they just like totally? I mean, this is all kind of wrong. I mean,
No, it's okay.
when like, and you're observing this, obviously, and like, were they just hard to crack? I mean, what? I mean, like, you're on the outside looking in. It had to be fascinating experience. Like,
Well, that when I was in Afghanistan, we did a lot of operations. I targeted over almost 500 people, and we did over 130 missions. Captured a lot, killed a lot. The ones that were captured, I ended up, I would help craft the questions and some of the interrogation methods and things that would get what they call PIR, priority intelligence requirements. I would try to say, like feed the interrogators and say, look, this is what we're trying to get to. Ask him about this. Ask him about the family. Do certain things to get him to positively identify somebody that maybe we didn't know. Stuff like that. And it put me in a position that was very strange. I ended up in very close proximity, eyeball to eyeball, with people who wanted me dead and who had probably killed friends of mine and things like that. And so you develop some tools in your mind to dissociate from the personal. And I cannot tell you how valuable that was to creating a mindset in me in normal life of not getting wrapped up in the ego, not getting, somebody can say whatever they want. I'm not dying for somebody's opinion.
yeah.
And so it's, if I can sit across from this guy and not stick a screwdriver in his face, I can handle the loudmouth at the bar,
Yeah, right. Like, based on what you've been through, somebody mouthing out of the bar is, I mean, like, yeah, okay. It's
least of my concerns. Yeah.
I think we're gonna be okay here. I mean, wow. I mean, like, from you observing for Guantanamo Bay, like, successful interrogations led to something.
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm going to wander into stuff that's been covered and is really polarizing, but like the waterboarding stuff. The Abu Zubaydah and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed were two of the three people that we subjected to waterboarding at secret prisons. Both of them at some point in their interrogations, and I got to tiptoe around this a little bit, but in essence, both of them thanked us for doing it because it absolved them of their responsibility to keep secrets. In their mind, having to endure that kind of thing made it okay. Allah would be okay with them saying,
Allah would.
Hey, I understand. He wouldn't want you to go through that kind of thing. So now I can talk and it's okay. I will say there's a big misunderstanding about what is torture, what it was used for. Waterboarding is definitely a torturous event. And I've been through it. I understand it better than a lot of people. If you've been through it, you wouldn't not call it torture. It's not lethal the way that it's done, but it wasn't done. It's not like it's not like you pour water over a guy's face and pick him up gasping and goes, "Where is he?" You're not back.
Yeah, no.
Where's the drugs? It's not like that. It was the stress, the positions, the keeping them awake. All of those sorts of things are to break down your resistance. It's to gain compliance. You don't ask anybody anything important under duress. You're trying to establish a level of compliance before you can get to those questions. So that kind of stuff. It wasn't like, they were torturing a guy and they'll say anything to make it stop. They weren't even asking him for stuff under duress. It was, are you complying or not? Do we have a rapport or not? And then once you got the rapport, now we can start. Now you get a hot cup of coffee and we can talk about bad guys.
Are you talking about like extended? I know you can't use the exact time, but I mean,
yeah.
Extended.
Yeah, there were a lot of sessions. A lot of this is public now. If you look it up online, you can see not just how many sessions there were, but what came out of them in a lot of cases. Yeah, the 9/11 reports and the stuff like that in public record are worth reading if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, here we got to. That's fascinating, man. I can't imagine. Jeez. All right, I want to just. We got a question here from 2-1 Bill. Can you talk about the back and forth of the plea deal, specifically how far up the chain of command to get approved?
Not from any personal experience. Nobody consulted me about it.
Nobody came to Mike.
Yeah, nobody was like, Mike, what do you think? No, I mean, look, anybody on the HVT list is those are presidential authorities. So it didn't ordinarily. That's it's a tough legal spot because they're being held in a military prison. There's a potential for a civilian trial. There's a potential for military tribunals. There's obviously an intelligence concern about if things that are discoverable in a trial. If those things come out and they're of intelligence value, we've got problems as far as what they call sources and methods. So yeah, those are very, very high authorities. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. I'm going to definitely get back to the backyard training and all that.
Okay.
What you're doing, but I'm trying to think how I can word this without like going into political deep end, because I'm definitely going out of the FMA conversation.
I'll keep you shallow. I'll keep you in check.
Yeah. I mean, present day, are we safe? America, are we safe?
I mean, are you safe going to get your Starbucks in the morning?
You know what I mean? Like are we safe from our grids? Are we safe?
We are less safe than we have been, in my opinion.
That's okay.
We are definitely seeing trends go the wrong way. And I mean, let me do this in a martial arts, self preparation, self readiness kind of paradigm. Wherever you come down on politics, it is very clear that there have been more attacks on American infrastructure. There have been more illegal border crossings. There have been even if overall crime has been lowered, you have to kind of ask yourself, is that real, or have they just not been prosecuting as many crimes? Have things that are illegal not been charged? There's ways to skew statistics. I won't go too far into that, but the fact of the matter is, there are certain types of things that we would worry about as maybe low probability but high impact have gone up. Martial arts really is about that, right? I mean, we don't train because something minor might happen. Something minor doesn't require a lot of training. We train for bad things happening that normal people aren't ready for. And so if that's part of your thinking, if that's part of your reason for training is being ready for those high impact scenarios, no matter how unlikely they may be, then you got to put some thought into this. Yeah. I think that the way I look at it, I'm teaching one public kind of workshop all year long. I haven't done any seminars this year. I've been focused kind of on the home front. But I'm going to go teach with Hakeem Eisler's group at Ready Expo in October. And it's not a martial arts seminar. It's a preparation seminar.
Preparation, God forbid if.
Yeah. So it's how to be self-sufficient. It's how to be self-reliant.
Just the fact that there's interest for that. What does that tell you?
There's huge interest, and there should be.
Yeah.
To me, there's huge interest, there's growing interest, and there's still not enough interest. One of the people in the audience, Brad Garrison, has a group that is kind of about the mental, spiritual, intellectual readiness that it takes to be effective in a world like today's. And while Brad is one of the most phenomenal martial artists I've ever trained with, the fact that he's teaching that instead of how to swing a stick,
think about that,
says a lot.
Priorities, right? Like screw learning how to swing a stick, man.
Right.
Right.
Better you got to be ready for all the stuff that's not the fight. And if you think about it, the fight is this big. Everything left of that is avoidable. Everything to the right of that has to be mitigated and managed. So if you're not paying attention to the 99% of life that isn't that fight, wow, are you spending a lot of time on a
Are
very
you
small,
saying a lot of wasted
you know?
time?
And
Right.
so, and I'm not saying don't do it, because most of us do it not because we're trying to get ready for Armageddon. Most of us do it because it's fun. We like hanging out with people who do the same stuff, and it's really cool to
Sure.
be able to do some of this kind of thing. And it's a release and it's fun. It also helps that it's applicable and it helps us grow. But there's a big world outside of that fight, man. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that comes before you're in a fight, and if you don't prep yourself for all of that stuff, um, you're not ready. And if you don't understand how to take care of the stuff that happens after, some of the best instructors I know really encourage people, if you're going to pick up weapons, learn first aid in parallel, right? I mean, when we train with knives, my kids know how to put a tourniquet on. My
I gotta get
youngest
into that.
the
That's
youngest
good
girl in the
advice.
house can dump quick clot on a wound and put a tourniquet on.
No, that's just good sound advice, man.
You
That's
know,
something
it's
I gotta, yeah, yeah.
stop the
No,
leaks in you, stop the leaks in others.
no, I'm with you. No, no, man. That's just, yeah, dead on. I mean, okay, last one. I'm gonna get back to that. I just find it so fascinating. And I know and it's my fault. I'll take the hit. Um,
I'm
do
an
you,
unconventional guest.
yes, do you, yeah, who, Mike, who? No, 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 no. It was not put on YouTube, man. That's been, um, do you think, are we like, I guess the best way I could put it on a scale 1 to 10, like, I mean, are you overly concerned? Are you like, man, like we could be in great, great jeopardy if posts November? I mean, like,
I hope I'm the right level of concerned. Um, I'm taking more steps than I have in recent years to make sure that my family knows stuff that they didn't need to know before.
that you would normally do.
Um,
Okay.
I let me put it this way: I used to really feel comfortable being the guy in the family who knew all this stuff and could take care of it for everybody if something happened. I now want everybody to know it.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay. Enough said.
it's not enough for me to be able to get my family out of a bad spot and then render aid. I need my kids to know how to do it. I need Rihanna to know how to do it. I need my friends that I hang out with routinely to know how to do it. It's important that we are individually self-sufficient so that we are collectively more powerful as a result.
Nice. Well, you thank you for answering. Yeah, I get your drift. Everybody's excuse statistics to their benefit. That's always
That's what they're
charming.
for. There's no point collecting them otherwise.
Oh my God, we got a question in here.
Oh, you got to get to Bills. That was a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah. What
Um,
is your current EDC?
okay.
First off, in bag, carried, in car, in plane,
So
lockup.
it's important that you mention this, and I think I saw a comment up there before about what do you do when you're in a high risk situation,
Hmm.
and you can't have a weapon on you. The two, I can't unplug this to show you the cord, but here I'll use a stand-in. One of the things that I do with my phone charging cables is I'll take the guts out of a piece of 550 cord and I'll rope that onto my charging cord, so it's a lot stronger and I can use that as a flexible weapon.
Nice.
Um, that doesn't get pulled off you in the airplane. Um, my water bottle and my phone battery pack are all impact weapons that I can use when I can't have something sharp and pokey or something that goes bang. Um, I have found a couple of pretty creative ways to get knives in airports. If you can afford to book yourself first class, they will give you a metal knife on the plane. It's kind of awesome. If not, you can usually stop at a steakhouse behind security, and they will give you some form of a knife. Whether or not you carry that on a plane, it'd be highly illegal if you did, but I mean the opportunity's there. Um, there's a lot of those kinds of things that when I was doing intelligence work, you couldn't have an EDC really because what you carry is. There's an old saying that tradecraft looks like tradecraft. If you walk around looking like a warrior, you're a warrior, and they're going to assume that about you. If you're supposed to be an investment banker, you need to look like an investment banker.
You got to play it. I got
And to that end, I did things like I carried fountain pens instead of ballpoint pens because the tip is like a broad head and it opens a bigger wound. So I would put thought into, not what is my everyday carry, but what can I find in my environment. A good friend of mine, Aaron Kimball, and I used to have a saying, you can either hit people with stuff or you can hit stuff with people. So I would, I would look for things in the environment. Anything you got on hand is a good one. I've actually trained a lot of sort of surprise attack stuff with a water bottle, whether it's the fluid in the face followed by the shot or whether it's using the bottle itself. I do sword and shield stuff with my son, using my backpack as a shield.
Like that.
It's got straps, and
the backpack,
tough to stab through a laptop. So if you know how to use that as a shield, that's a great everyday thing, especially if you're traveling through airports. If you don't know how to use it, then it's just this big heavy thing on your back slowing you down. So I think, again, getting back to why Filipino martial arts is so cool, and I'm picking on the cost particularly because of the sensibility of cataloging those 12 areas. My sword and shield could be a backpack and a water bottle, right? And it can be
the backpack, man. That's huge, man. You know what I mean?
People don't think of it. Tighten those straps up and use it as a shield. It's Go home and try to stab through a backpack full of clothes. It's really
no, 100,
if you know how to use that and you put the time in with it so that it's a familiar thing and not just some, floppy weight at the end of your arm. It is, somebody called it a game changer in there. Brian, you're right. It is a game changer.
Yeah. A huge backpack guy, man. I totally agree with you on that, man. Because if you think about it, man, there's your shield. Whatever else you got in your hand, man, there's your spear, knife, whatever, right?
Yep.
Got another question here from Brad Garrison. We all say it's not what's in your kit, but what's in your head, heart. What do you consider to be the top mental, spiritual attribute mitigating challenges, changes, and etc.?
Again, that's a big one. Brad actually is the genesis of the phrase. Everybody's got a philosophy, even if you think yours is that you don't have one. I had one idea. I would have answered this a different way before I had gone to war. I think everybody is changed by that in their own way. I think dealing with the things that you see and do and experience in a war zone colors, sort of your psychological management, your spiritual management. I never felt like it did, traumatic things to me. I was older when I went. I kind of had a sense of myself. So, it was different for me than maybe some of the 18-year-olds that are going and figuring out who they are under fire. But I think spending time every day understanding, who you are, what you're about. We talked a lot earlier on in this about not letting somebody else replace your agenda. And the danger of that if I can wander off into the esoteric a little bit, if you let somebody start replacing your agenda, you start letting them replace your identity. And if you start letting them replace your identity, then you don't have your thoughts anymore. They've got your thoughts. And that makes it really hard when you need to really own them and understand them, because they don't come from you anymore. So I think that one of the best things that you can do to mitigate danger from the psychological point of view or from the emotional point of view, just trauma in general, is really get a hold of yourself, really know who you are, spend time with you, spend time unplugged with your thoughts, sitting in those, bored times or uncomfortable times or frustrating times or whatever, and transmogrify that stress and frustration into horsepower for whatever it is that you're doing.
You're so on the money with that, man. Like I've had to, and here's why, because I went through that without being able to articulate how you just did it. And that was like, there are times after my discussion just got so stressful that one time I just took a month, man. But during that month, I just got to get acquainted with myself. Because I had just lost myself, like appealing to everybody, appeasing everybody, and it came to this. But that month, like just what you just said, like sitting alone, you know what I mean? Just
a lot of people aren't prepared for it, man. I mean, there's a lot of people who, I like getting out in the backcountry. I like going camping. I like being out in places where people aren't. I can hear that inner voice a little bit better when it's not competing with everything else.
And you have to, what the thing is too, you're forced to, like, assuming that you're surrendering to that and you want to get something out of this, like, you're forced to hear that inner voice. You know what I mean?
I am shocked at how many people run from it actively every day. Like how many people in a 5-minute, you have a 5-minute opportunity to just shut up and listen to what's going on in your own head, and people run screaming away from it every chance they get and wonder why they have all their triggers and traumas. I was a psychology guy, studied behavioral psychology and of course psychological operations, and then recruiting people to spy for our country. Learning behaviors was a big deal in my life. And I forget where I saw this model, but I think Jordan Peterson covered it a little bit, maybe Peter Boghossian and somebody like that. But the idea is that you don't have a brain, you have 4 brains. You have that amygdala, that reptilian brainstem part of you that just reacts to stuff, loud noise, and you spaz out and wonder what it is. It's just, it doesn't have, there's no sensibilities when you're making dinosaur noises and screaming and running away. We have a mammal brain that's wrapped around that. And the anatomy of the brain actually is that you can see it. If you look at diagrams of a brain, it's not like one big mass and there's parts that do different stuff. It's like there's this little seed in the middle, and then there's a thing wrapped around it, and then there's a bigger thing, and then so you've got your mammal brain, which is responsible for social behaviors and stuff that we do as mammals. Doesn't have language, it doesn't have communication, it's our social structures. Above that is a primate brain, which kind of gives us the monkey level thinking and the stuff that we do that way. The uniquely human part of that, the newest part of that's the neocortex, and it's the outside part of our brain. And if you visualize that model, kind of those traumas and triggers and emotional, spiritual kind of reactions that you have to things, you've all had that thing where you're like, I'm frustrated and I can't put it into words. That's down in the middle there. That's in that reptile brain. If you want to deal with that, you've got to elevate it through that mammalian brain, through that primate brain, up to where the human part can create words. That's the only part where words live. If you can't take that impulse and turn it into words, you're just not dealing with it at a human level.
Yeah, it's just staying there. Yeah.
So there's some magic in that, right? There's some magic in listening to that internal voice, because it's a voice. And without words, you're dealing with something below that. There's a lot of special operations guys who can tell you the first time they went through a shoot house, it was all high in the chest breathing and they didn't see anything. And then, the 50th time they did it, or the 100th time they did it, they could tell you every detail of the room. It was just like casual, it's because they had processed that out of emotional response level and into that part where you're really truly observing, and I think, not to take something that esoteric and just slam it back into Filipino martial arts, but that same level of awareness happens at the end of a stick, right? When you're in that clash, and when you're dealing with, a top dog or a crafty dog swinging at you like this, right? You're either in that moment right now, or you're getting hit a lot, right?
Or you're getting that top dog, you're knocked out.
You're probably getting hit anyway, right? But the idea is you train it and you learn it to the point that it's like the exact opposite of what they always say in the movies. They say you train it till it's automatic. No, you train it until you're observing it faster. The automatic part was what was getting you hit. Being able to out-evolve that and bring it into a level where you can assess and analyze and make decisions and actually deal with that as a problem set in the moment, that's when you get good. And that's what I think maybe Filipino martial arts does better than a lot.
Yeah, just because of the gravity of it's not
speed,
punches,
just
man.
the sheer
You're
pressure.
Speed, but misdirection, you're getting hit. I mean, wood, substance, blunt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trauma. Yeah. So
boxing will do it, but unfortunately it knocks it right back down to reptile once you get hit.
Wow, man. That was awesome stuff. So your backyard. So this is something you got pretty much going on regularly? I mean,
Yeah, and it goes up and down. People have stuff going on their own time frame. It's not a set thing. Like, we get together when people want to. There's a few people that come pretty regularly, and we train every week. There's other people who drop in now and again. There's people that live 2 or 3 hours away that I wish I could see, all the time, and it's hard to get them down here because they live so far away. But I think the thing that's changed, like I wasn't in Colorado Springs. I left Colorado Springs in 2007 and didn't come back until a couple of years ago. So, essentially 15 years went by without me being around, and the people that stayed there and were doing the same stuff, we're getting better and better and better at martial arts and growing like crazy. So I came back, and where, maybe some of these people were my peer level competitors at other schools had now just gone, wow. And, they've started doing stuff they weren't doing when I was here before. And now that we can kind of just train whenever we feel like it, it's cool. It's cool because I don't have a school down the street that they're trying to compete with students and this and that. It's all the garbage is gone, and we just get together.
No, and plus you guys, plus it sounds like you can really dial in like what you want because you got like-minded folks there. You're not worried about okay, I got to make sure this guy gets A through C. I mean,
none of us care who's in front of the room either. Like I'll start showing something, and then there's another instructor who runs a full-time fight gym, and he's like, hey, we got a drill for that in the ring, and it looks like this. And now he's teaching that, and somebody else will be like, well, yeah, we do that in Kaju Kenbo, and here's how that looks over here. And it's like, it just takes off. It's very organic. It's really cool. So I wish there was a model that would be awesome. That would be effective in a commercial setting. The Inosanto Academy is probably the closest I've ever seen. Yeah,
the commercial is just because you got to have that head figure because you got students going up levels. So you have to graduate them. You have to appease them because there's money involved.
Yep. Got to keep the lights on.
To get that organic, you have to have like just mature guys.
You got to have a day job.
Going through that. They know what they want. Right. They know what they want, and they don't care who is leading. They're far beyond that. They just want to get like-minded folks and just work. You know what I mean?
Well, if people would try it more, I think they would all find a real benefit to having.
I totally agree with you.
There's everybody on that floor is, more accomplished than me in whatever arts they do. I mean, it's a room full of really good people. And so anytime you can take an idea that's already pretty good and give it to people who are badasses, it gets better. It's just how do you take the ego out of it? That's the uncrackable nut. And how do you take the branding off of it? You know what I mean? How do you keep it from, well, it's got to have my brand on it still when you guys leave here. Like, no, it doesn't. You earned it.
Yeah, right. It's yours now. I mean, right.
How many reps did you put in before you could do it? Well, then that's yours.
Yeah. So what you got so what's future goals for you? I mean, I know you just mentioned you're doing that, I don't want to say seminar, but kind of that.
Yeah. I've had a couple of inquiries about, what I like to come teach this or that. There was a really good opportunity to develop a curriculum for the state of California for victims of trafficking, how to kind of get them on their feet and give them some self-defense stuff. And a good friend of mine down there said he didn't want to do it. I'd like to help with that sometime. If there's anybody in Southern California that wants to get on board with that, I'd love to work with you.
That's what a great cause. Huh?
There's lots of stuff. I think my biggest goal, apart from winning the lottery and becoming Batman,
that's funny.
I would really like to get back sort of closer to some of the volunteering stuff and the disaster relief stuff that I've done, and sort of taking some of that to the agencies that respond to those kinds of things, giving them some of the preparatory stuff and the readiness training and the awareness training that I've done. I'm finding that to be a lot more applicable than punches and kicks.
They're just like giving them elbow and knee and
Right. Not that that's not important, and it's still really fun to me, but I find that again, that here's bang, and the left and right of bang are so big, it's the rest of your life. Every moment that you've lived your life that you haven't been in a fight is all of that stuff. The moments that you've been in a fight is this stuff, and so like one's bigger.
Yeah, so let's concentrate on what's bigger. Right, exactly. Yeah,
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 like
yeah.
I want better tools for the rest of the day.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, man. That's wow. Man, this has been awesome, man. Like Arnold is right, man, about having you on. We
Well,
got
I hope it's
so
been as entertaining for everybody else as it has been for me.
oh no, 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 it's been awesome. I mean, no, it's this is like I love conversations like this. But so um okay. What I mean, I know like if you want to kind of continue your garage training with the guys you got there, continue doing stuff like that. You want definitely there. What about you personal growth within martial arts? I mean, like, what would you like to achieve? Like just that's just you. You know,
So
you get to be so you get to be selfish now.
okay, well, luckily I'm doing that. No, uh, um, I'm going to pitch Brad Garrison again here because he's we've gotten old together. I've gotten out of that era of my life when I needed to be good at fighting at a bar or even in a war zone. Hopefully, um, what's important to me now is being as effective as I can be at being the head of my household. Having a grip on things, not being stressed out of my mind,
Mm,
and and Brad has built something that's kind of it definitely its genesis is definitely martial arts. It comes from all the things that we've talked about, all the things that we've done together. He and I have trained together for 30 years, so maybe that's why I'm so comfortable with him is because what he's developing these days kind of fits very well with all those things that I've been through and all the goals that I have for the future. He is doing something called 21st Century Ninjutsu, and he was one of the old school '80s students of ninjutsu. It was first getting big, and it's been. Don't get me wrong, he's a JKD guy and a Filipino martial artist as
mm.
well, and has done Brazilian jiu-jitsu and you name it, Thai boxing, all of the stuff that we all do. But he has really focused on building a method for teaching that stuff that's left and right of bang. Um,
Okay.
and I've as I find myself going through my day to day now, and if I look at what I would like to really throw my time into down the road, I think I'd be spending more time on that kind of stuff um,
And
because it not
I can
only
dig it.
what's that.
I can dig it. You're not going to be going to bars. You have to worry about the sucker punch or something like that. You
Well, and
are,
we still train all of that. Like he's still we've done a lot of training, even on the mental agility front that started with Hubot. Like we start
mm,
with energy drills. We'll look at move out from hand to hand stuff into a weapon, move into firearms. Now back out into your life. How do you get fixated on? Well, like you were saying, how do you get centered on me? How do I get
mm.
in touch with that voice? Kind of calm it down and settle everything down so I can hear what's going on in there. He's got more warrior oriented ways of doing that than just about anything I've seen
Oh
so
wow,
far.
that's awesome.
Yeah, really
Wow.
cool stuff. I don't know if he's Brad, if you're out there still and you're willing to throw something up on here about how
He
people
might be
can find
somebody
you.
worth getting on here, man. If he's interested, yeah.
You should totally talk to him.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
will fall in love with his accent right away.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Could dig that. So, all right. So, how long you in Indiana? How much more
I'm
time you
here
got?
for another at least a few days.
And then you're back to
Back home.
Colorado.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, how long has it been? How long you been away?
Been too long. No, been a week. We've got another couple of days. So the company that I work for, I still work in government affairs and defense contracting and stuff. So, I kind of chase around conferences and some of the bigger events. Um, some of what we're doing now, we're looking at working fairly closely with special operations community, and so we're out here demonstrating some capabilities. But following that, hopefully I'll be back on the home front and catch up on some training.
Yeah, I mean, I hate being like, man, that's like, I don't travel well. I don't like being away. Like, I'm just not that guy. Like, it could just, oh man, I'm going away. Like, a lot,
See,
like,
you need Brad's stuff too. You become, he calls it being a householder, and you hit that age where your priorities change. You got stuff that you care
yeah,
about
like I
way
feel
more.
bad, guilty. I'm away and they're home, and like 2 days, I can manage 2 days. Okay, I'm gonna be. I can compartmentalize that, and there. If it goes beyond that, man,
It's
it's
not, yeah, it
not a
gets
good.
unsettling.
It's not a good scene, man. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, no, I'm with you. It's home
Wow.
for a reason. You know, you spent your whole life making it comfortable.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I got the
I think
kids
back,
and
man. We started this session talking about it, and
yeah.
you know that 20-year-old me that was totally comfortable being homeless in Los Angeles. You
Now you're
know,
like,
I look at that now and I'm like, dude, I can barely sleep on a bed, let alone the ground.
yeah, oh my
Uh,
God.
I
Yeah,
wake up making noises when I'm comfortable.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, man, that's wow. That is awesome. Well, hey, man, I really enjoyed this. I really thank you for coming on. I appreciate
Oh, it's been
it.
a blast.
Yeah, like I don't want this to be the last time, and I'll find up subject matters to talk about, man.
Oh, call me anytime, man, and just let me know if you're
Yeah,
recording so I don't mention
and we'll
names.
have to give a mutual thank to Arnold, man. Arnold
For
was,
sure. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Arnold made it happen, man. So big shout out to Arnold if he's
Yeah,
watching. If he's not watching, best
he's teaching right now.
episode ever from Two on Bill. Now, Two on Bill, I've done this is the 493rd episode, and he's saying this is the best episode.
Wow, and I was
So
unarmed the
that's
whole time.
that's
If,
pretty good, man.
for those
So
who
you guys
don't know,
really
I was
great.
lamenting earlier that I couldn't have a weapon on screen. I needed my whoopee, and I didn't have
Yeah,
one.
your core there, which I think is so clever, and kudos to you for that. I think that's just so clever. You ever get out? Hey, before I let you ever get out to the East Coast? Generally speaking,
Yeah, I'm in DC a lot. Again, government affairs stuff. I'm hoping to be in North Carolina more after this event with Hakeem. Um,
how about Northeast, like New York, New Jersey?
used to more than lately. I used to go to New York every like twice a month. I'm happy to go if there's anybody that wants to host. I mean, I'd love to get out there again.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we got.
You
I
know,
got.
even just for a trip. If there's good people to hang out with, I don't mean host a seminar and put on a big thing. I mean just like if there's somebody that wants to hang out and exchange ideas, give me a reason to go, and I'll take off.
No, man, that's music. Wow, music in my ears, man. Wow, awesome. Hey, all right, Mike, man. Again, thank you. I really enjoyed this, and let's stay in touch because that was one of the best phone call conversations. I really enjoyed that, man.
Me too. Me too. It's
Yeah,
good to meet true kindred spirits. It's nice.
yeah, absolutely, man. So hey, wait, you take care, man. Hopefully you get Indiana back home safe, man. I'm looking at that paneling, man,
God
and
willing.
I would want to get out of
That's a
there.
curtain. This
Is
is
that
a
a
giant.
curtain?
This is. Yeah, that's quality
That's
hotel
still, I would
space
want
there,
to get
man.
away from that too. I don't know.
Yeah, nightmare fuel.
I'm looking at the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I
All
don't
right,
think it
man.
like
You
that
take
anymore.
care.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, you be good. All right, that wraps up 493. Who is next? A couple folks. Got Joe and Chad. I gotta get Maya, her third book. I gotta get her on. Yeah. Um, who else? Probably Ray Floro again. Colby, the Sea Lot. Piper Guys. I'm getting Piper Guys on. I'm gonna try swinging through it like 10 minutes. Hey, what do you like about this? Yeah, I'm gonna try to coordinate like every 10 minutes, just cycling somebody through. And I don't even care what. It doesn't matter what level they are. I want everybody to be able to speak on it and stuff. So yeah, so that should be coming down. But as usual, just tech FMA discussion. I always leave a pen so you know what's coming up and what's going on. All right. But hey, man, that guy killed it. Thank you again, Arnold. And I'll talk to you guys or see you. Have a great weekend and check out what's coming up next week.